When I set out to write the book, The Ferengi, Masters of Profit, I wanted to capture what the Ferengi truly represent within the Star Trek universe and, by reflection, within our own. For too long, they were dismissed as comic foils or shallow opportunists. Yet beneath the pointed teeth and rules of acquisition lies one of the richest and most revealing cultural studies in all of speculative fiction. The Ferengi embody an idea that profit is not only survival, but destiny. Through them, Star Trek holds a mirror to us, exaggerating the logic of commerce until it becomes both absurd and inevitable. In the Ferengi, we see a species that never needed fleets to dominate, never raised empires through conquest, and never pretended to higher ideals. Instead, they wove an invisible empire, contracts, debts, and supply chains spanning the alpha, beta, and gamma quadrants. Blending canon with ecological modeling, evolutionary biology, economic theory, and intelligence studies, this thought experiment treats the Ferengi not as comic relief, but as a civilization to be studied in full scientific and cultural context. It draws on canonical appearances across the next generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise, then expands them with extrapolated climatology of Ferenginar, speculative physiology of Ferengi neurobiology, and comparative analyses of interstellar trade as intelligence practice. Structured in part as internal memoranda and threat assessments from Section 31, the Tal Shiar, Obsidian Order, Tholians, Gorn, and Breen, these perspectives reveal how other galactic powers interpret Ferengi influence. The result is both a cultural compendium and a scientific thought experiment, an attempt to show how an empire of contracts and commerce can outlast fleets, borders, and even ideologies. This book is not meant to retell episodes or compile trivia. It is meant as a work of extrapolation, taking the glimpses we are given on screen and extending them outward into a coherent portrait of biology, history, society, and strategy. From their amphibious ancestors on rain-drenched Ferenginar to the hidden intelligence arms of the Ferengi Commerce Authority, each thread here is woven with the same ruthless logic the Ferengi themselves might admire, turning scraps of canon into a tapestry of profit. I have also written this book with respect to the evolving place of the Ferengi within Star Trek. As Quark, Rom, and Nog showed us, Ferengi are not caricatures but characters capable of change, resistance, and even reform. Grand Nagasek's enlightened policies and Rom's eventual succession opened a door for the species to grow beyond caricatured greed into something both more dangerous and more fascinating, a civilization still driven by profit, but now expanded by inclusivity, adaptability, and cultural depth. If this book succeeds, it will help readers see the Ferengi as more than background merchants or schemers. They are, in many ways, the circulatory system of the galaxy, feeding, siphoning, and sustaining the flow of goods, knowledge, and influence across powers that otherwise would tear each other apart. And perhaps, if you read closely, you may come to the same unsettling conclusion I did, that in a galaxy of fleets and fire, it may be the Ferengi who will last the longest. In this excerpt from the book, I will discuss how the Ferengi use Tongo as a simulator for galactic expansion. Tongo is not just a game of luck or numbers, it is a simulation of Ferengi strategy. The layered actions, acquire, confront, evade, or retreat, mirror how the Ferengi insert themselves into galactic economies. Each move reflects the philosophy that expansion is not conquest, but transaction. Symbiotic mutualism. Cooperative trades in Tongo, mergers, joint ventures, map to rule of acquisition number 34, war is good for business, and rule number 35, peace is good for business. Ferengi recognize when symbiosis, that is alliances, trade partnerships, creates profit for all players. Winning in Tongo often means leaving your rivals solvent enough to play again tomorrow. Symbiotic Commensalism. Strategic holding or speculation in Tongo mirrors how Ferengi exploit neutral ground without disturbing the host. This reflects rule number 48. The bigger the smile, the sharper the knife. By appearing harmless, Ferengi profits slip through unnoticed, tolerated by larger powers. Symbiotic Parasitism. Aggressive buyouts or sudden withdrawals destabilize rivals in the game. This embodies rule number 45, expand or die. In galactic practice, Ferengi take advantage of weakened economies, for example, Cardassia post-Dominion War, Orion Syndicate turf wars, by bleeding them for profit. The rules of acquisition as Tongo strategy. Each Tongo action reflects not only a rule of acquisition, but also a Ferengi ecological mode of expansion. Acquire. Symbiotic mutualism. Rule number 3, never pay more for an acquisition than you have to. Buying and pricing cards establishes profitable exchanges. On the galactic scale, this mirrors Ferengi symbiotic mutualism, offering trade deals with the Federation, Bajor, or neutral hubs where both sides benefit and stability is reinforced. Retreat. Symbiotic Commensalism. Rule number 47, don't trust a man wearing a better suit than your own. Withdrawing without loss reflects symbiotic commensalism. The Ferengi attach themselves to Klingon or Romulan markets, profiting quietly, but stepping back when hostility rises. They leave without destabilizing the host, ready to return another day. Confront. Symbiotic Parasitism. Rule number 9, opportunity plus instinct equals profit. Using all cards across the board represents symbiotic parasitism, bold invasive strikes into fragile economies, that is, post-war Cardassia, Orion turf wars. The Ferengi seize opportunities aggressively, siphoning value while rivals weaken. Evade. Cryptic opportunism. Rule number 17, a contract is a contract, but only between Ferengi. If acquire is honest trade, retreat is disciplined withdrawal, and confront is predatory exploitation, then evade is the most Ferengi move of all. Evade is not about leaving the table. It is about remaining at the table while convincing everyone you are no longer playing. In Tongo, evade represents actions that obscure true intentions, redirect attention, mask ownership, influence, or liability, preserve optionality while avoiding exposure. An evading player appears passive, constrained, or irrelevant while quietly reshaping outcomes through indirect means. Where retreat preserves assets by exiting, evade preserves advantage by disappearing in plain sight. Galactic application. Ferengi cryptic expansion. Economic camouflage. Ferengi do not always trade as Ferengi. Evade manifests as shell corporations registered to non-aligned species, minority stakes hidden inside larger consortiums, independent traders who just happen to follow FCA pricing logic, barter networks that convert into latinum 3 steps removed. To outside observers, Ferengi influence appears fragmented, coincidental, or non-existent. When to evade. Evade is deployed when direct trade would trigger sanctions, retreat would forfeit too much market intelligence, confrontation would invite retaliation, visibility itself becomes the risk. In these moments, Ferengi do not withdraw, they go translucent. Ecological logic. Cryptic opportunism. In biological terms, cryptic opportunists survive by blending into their environment, feeding without drawing notice, adapting form faster than predators can track. Ferengi evade operates the same way. They let larger powers fight. They profit from inefficiencies created by that conflict. They avoid being identified as a strategic actor. The galaxy fights wars. The Ferengi monetize the fog. Canonical style examples. Federation space. When Starfleet scrutiny increases, Ferengi licensing shifts to Federation-friendly intermediaries. Profits flow through legal gray zones, shipping, insurance, arbitration. The Ferengi become service providers, not traders. They are present everywhere and accountable nowhere. Romulan border economies. Under Tal Shiar pressure, Ferengi dissolve visible operations, maintain influence through Romulan merchants indebted via quiet loans, control logistics without owning assets. The Romulans see leverage, not a target. Psychological warfare through absence. Evade also disrupts opponents cognitively. Other powers ask, who is actually controlling this market? Why does every path lead to Ferengi pricing models? Why can't we sanction anyone directly? Evade weaponizes plausible deniability as a form of power. Tongo as cultural conditioning. Tongo teaches that visibility is a liability. Influence is strongest when unacknowledged. The most dangerous player is the one everyone forgets. Young Ferengi learn that profit does not always come from winning a hand, but from ensuring no one realizes whose hand reshaped the deck. Evade versus retreat. Stay hidden within the market versus leave the market. Preserve influence versus preserve capital. Continuous obscured presence versus temporary absence. Risk diffusion versus risk avoidance. Both protect profit, but evade protects control. Closing principle. If confront is the Ferengi strike and retreat is the Ferengi step back, then evade is the Ferengi shadow. And as every experienced daemon knows, the shadow that moves the ledger never gets audited. Profit is life. Why this matters? Tongo is more than diversion. It is a simulation of Ferengi destiny. Each move around the Latinum pot embodies their cultural belief that survival and prosperity come not through conquest, but through profitable symbiosis. The galaxy itself is simply the largest Tongo table. Symbiotic expansion in galactic context. Federation. Symbiotic mutualism. In Tongo, players sometimes co-invest to raise the pot. Likewise, Ferengi form trade symbioses with the Federation. Starfleet gets access to goods, Ferengi get Latinum. Both survive, both prosper. Klingons and Romulans. Symbiotic commensalism. Tongo players may shadow a strong hand, profiting without challenge. Ferengi attach themselves to Klingon supply chains and Romulan black markets, tolerated as necessary nuisances. Cardassians. Symbiotic parasitism. In the game, a well-timed sell can collapse another player's holdings. In reality, Ferengi buy debt, strip assets, and feed off instability, leaving their host weaker but still usable. Why Tongo sustains Ferengi expansion? Tongo is both training simulator and cultural indoctrination. Every Ferengi learns profit comes from interaction. Isolation is ruin. The key is balance. Never kill the market you feed on. The galaxy itself is one great Tongo table. Thus, Ferengi expansion looks less like empire and more like a fungal network of profitable connections. Each move in Tongo preparing Ferengi to weave mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism into galactic society. This concludes the excerpt from the book, The Ferengi, Masters of Profit. Get the audiobook from audiobooks.com, Everand, Kobo, B and N Audiobooks, Spotify, TuneIn, Bibliotheca, and Overdrive. You will receive a free ebook with purchase at participating vendors. Get the book formats from Amazon, Apple, Barnes & Nobles, Kobo, and Google Books. Links in the description. Until next time. Peace.